What if I told you that the secret to starting your day with unstoppable focus and calmness was written down by a Roman emperor almost 2,000 years ago? Yes, while most of us wake up dragging ourselves out of bed, reaching for our phones, and already feeling overwhelmed, Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, faced mornings just like us. But instead of drowning in chaos, he had a method so powerful that it still works today. So let me ask you this. If a man who commanded armies, ruled over millions of people, and carried the weight of an empire could find peace every morning, what's stopping us? Marcus didn't start his day with luxury, even though he could have. He didn't start it with distractions, even though every demand in the world was knocking at his door. He started with a few words written to himself in his private journal, later known as meditations. And those words weren't grand speeches or complicated rituals, they were simple reminders. Reminders that no matter how heavy life feels when you wake up, you are alive for a purpose. Think about your own mornings. How often do you wake up already stressed, already tired, already dreading what's ahead? Imagine flipping that feeling into clarity, discipline, and even strength before you've had your first sip of coffee. That's what Marcus did, and that's what we're about to uncover. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to start your day like a Stoic. Not with empty motivation, but with practical, battle-tested wisdom from the greatest Stoic emperor himself. And here's the catch: it doesn't take hours of meditation or a perfect morning routine. It only takes a shift in mindset, something you can do tomorrow morning. Stay with me, because once you learn how Marcus Aurelius designed his mornings, you'll never look at your own routine the same way again. When you and I wake up in the morning, what's the first thing we usually do? Be honest, most of us grab our phones, scroll through emails, check the news, or dive straight into a to-do list that already feels overwhelming. It's like the world demands our attention before we've even taken our first breath of calm. But Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and emperor of Rome, did something radically different. Imagine this: the man who ruled over the most powerful empire in history, who had armies, politics, and constant crises waiting at his door, did not start his morning by rushing into the noise of the world. Instead, he started with his mind. In his private journal Meditations, Marcus wrote a simple reminder to himself. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. And in another passage he says, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. Think about that. He wasn't pumping himself up with fake positivity. He wasn't lying to himself. He was reminding himself of his purpose. That waking up is not just about surviving another day. It's about living as a human, thinking, acting, serving, and being part of something greater than yourself. Now here's the question for you. What if tomorrow, instead of reaching for your phone, you asked yourself a single powerful question? Not what's on my schedule, but what was I born to do today? That's a radical shift. And it's one that science actually backs up. Studies in psychology show that how you frame your morning has a measurable impact on your stress levels, productivity, and even your emotional resilience throughout the day. If you wake up already reactive, checking notifications, drowning in tasks, you're setting your brain to play defense all day long. But if you wake up with clarity and intention, you play offense, you take control. And Marcus Aurelius knew this 2,000 years ago. He didn't have a smartphone, he didn't have a Google Calendar, but he had something more powerful: a Stoic mindset. He understood that the way you begin your morning determines the tone of your entire day. Now let me paint you a picture. Imagine waking up tomorrow. You resist the urge to check your phone. Instead, you sit on the edge of your bed, take one deep breath, and say to yourself, I was born to do the work of a human being today. To think, to act, to love, to contribute. How different would your day feel if you started like that? It sounds simple, almost too simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. Our modern world is designed to hijack your attention the moment you open your eyes. That's why this practice is even more important now than it was in Marcus's time. And here's the hook: your first 60 seconds in the morning are the most valuable real estate of your day. If you give that moment away to stress, distraction, or negativity, you're already on the back foot. But if you claim it for yourself by setting your mind like Marcus did, you're building inner armor that nothing else can break. So I'll ask you again, would you dare to start your morning not with your schedule, not with your phone, but with a question? A question that recenters your life on purpose instead of chaos. If a man who ruled the Roman Empire could pause long enough to remind himself of his humanity before ruling the world, then surely we can pause for 60 seconds before diving into emails. Because here's the truth: of the world will always demand your attention. But your mind, your mindset, that belongs to you. And if you don't claim it in the morning, someone else will. So tomorrow, when the alarm rings, don't just roll out of bed on autopilot. Don't just grab your phone. Instead, take one moment, one stoic moment, and remind yourself, I was born to live today, with purpose. Have you ever had one of those mornings where you wake up in a good mood, only to have it shattered by the first rude comment, a selfish coworker, or someone cutting you off in traffic? It feels like life waits for you to smile, just so it can slap it off your face. Marcus Aurelius knew this feeling all too well. And remember, this wasn't just any man. He was the emperor of Rome, carrying the weight of armies, politics, and the constant betrayal of those closest to him. Yet in his private writings, meditations, he left us a strange but powerful morning ritual. Each dawn, Marcus reminded himself, today I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, the envious, and the unsocial. At first glance, you might think, wow, that's depressing. Starting your day by expecting the worst. But here's the twist. Marcus wasn't being negative. He was being prepared. He understood something we often forget. Life will bring you difficult people, unfair situations, and unexpected problems. Pretending otherwise only makes the shock worse. But if you expect it, you're ready. So let me ask you, if you knew ahead of time that someone would criticize you today, would it sting as much? If you already anticipated delays, betrayals, or even disappointments, would they still have the same power over you? Or would you meet them with calm thinking? Yes, Marcus warned me about this. I knew it was coming. That's the genius of this practice. By accepting difficulty in advance, you strip it of its power. Modern psychology calls this negative visualization, and it's surprisingly effective. In fact, researchers have found that when people mentally rehearse obstacles, they respond with more resilience, less stress, and greater problem-solving ability when those obstacles actually appear. Marcus discovered this centuries before science could prove it. Think about it like this: an athlete doesn't just train for the easy moments of the game. They train for the pressure, the pain, the exhaustion, so that when it comes, they're not surprised. Why should life be any different? Marcus Aurelius woke up knowing he would face selfishness, arrogance, and envy. Not because he was pessimistic, but because he wanted to stay unshaken. He wanted to remind himself, these people act this way because they don't know any better. But I do. And I don't have to let them drag me down. Now pause for a moment. Imagine starting your day with this kind of mental armor. Before the traffic jam, before the annoying email, before the gossip, you've already told yourself these things will happen. They always do. And I choose not to be disturbed. Suddenly you are in control. The chaos of the world doesn't set the tone for your mood, you do. And here's a hook for you. If you know the storm is coming, do you fear the rain, or do you carry an umbrella? Marcus carried the ultimate umbrella, his Stoic preparation. That's why even as the Roman Empire trembled with war, plague, and betrayal, he could still write words of calm and clarity. So tomorrow morning, try this for yourself. Before you step out of bed, say to yourself, "Today I will meet people who are selfish, arrogant, ungrateful. But none of this will stop me from living according to my values." That single thought transforms your entire day from being reactive to being proactive. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're an author of your own response. Remember, you can't control how others behave, but you can control how you prepare for it. And preparation is power. So I'll leave you with this question. If you knew every trial waiting for you today, would you still fear them when they arrive? Or would you smile calmly, knowing you've been ready all along? Let's be honest. How many of us hit the snooze button at least once in the morning, maybe twice, or 3 times? It feels harmless in the moment. Just 5 more minutes. But here's the hidden truth. Every time you do that, you're not just delaying your day, you're losing a battle with yourself before the day even begins. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. As emperor of Rome, he could have lived in luxury. He could have stayed in bed for as long as he wanted, surrounded by servants with no one daring to question him. And yet, in his meditations, Marcus wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." Notice the word, he chose work. Not comfort, not leisure work. He didn't view waking up as a choice, but as a duty. To Marcus, getting out of bed was the first act of discipline, the first victory of the day. Now think about your own mornings. How often do you see waking up as optional? Should I get up now, or can I wait a little longer? Marcus would argue that this mindset is the start of a slippery slope. Because if you let your comfort win in the first 5 minutes of the day, what else will you let slide as the hours go on? Here's a hard question. Are you winning against yourself every morning, or are you starting the day in defeat? Modern science backs this up. Research shows that the first decision you make in the morning sets the tone for your entire day. It's called decision momentum. If your first choice is discipline, the next one becomes easier. If your first choice is indulgence, discipline gets harder. That's why people who wake up with structure tend to accomplish more, while people who give in to the snooze button often carry a sense of guilt or sluggishness that lingers for hours. Marcus Aurelius didn't have an alarm clock, but he had something stronger, a philosophy that made excuses irrelevant. He reminded himself that even animals rise and do their part. Birds fly, bees build. So why should a human being gifted with reason stay curled up in blankets? Now I know what you might be thinking, but I'm not a Roman emperor. I don't have the weight of an empire on my shoulders. True, but that's exactly why this lesson is so powerful. If the most powerful man in the world could reject comfort in order to honor his duty, what excuse do we have? Imagine this: tomorrow morning, your alarm goes off. Instead of hitting snooze, you pause and tell yourself, this is not optional. This is my duty. I rise because I am human and my work matters. How different would your day feel if you started with that level of commitment? Here's the hook. The battle of your entire day is often won or lost in the first 5 minutes. And the enemy isn't the traffic, your boss, or your bills. The enemy is your own comfort. Think about athletes again. Champions don't train only when they feel like it. Soldiers don't prepare only when it's convenient. They win because they master themselves before the world even tests them. Marcus Aurelius lived by this same principle: win the battle against comfort, and the rest of the day will follow. But here's the thing, it's not about punishing yourself or living without joy. Marcus wasn't saying we should hate sleep or hate comfort. He was saying we shouldn't become slaves to it. Comfort should be a reward, not a master. So here's your challenge. Tomorrow morning when your alarm rings, don't ask yourself, do I feel like getting up? Instead, remind yourself, I am not here to indulge. I am here to live, to work, to grow. And then get up. Don't wait, don't negotiate, just rise. Because the truth is, every morning you either win or lose against yourself. And that small victory or defeat echoes throughout your entire day. So let me ask you one last time. Are you winning the battle against yourself every morning? Or are you letting comfort steal your strength before the day even begins? Every morning when we wake up, our minds instantly start racing. What if the meeting goes wrong? What if traffic makes me late? What if that person doesn't like me? We get lost in a storm of worries about things that, let's be honest, are mostly out of our hands. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, faced far greater problems than you or I will ever see. He had wars to fight, plagues spreading through his empire, and political betrayals waiting in every shadow. Yet he taught himself one simple truth: focus only on what's within your control. Let go of everything else. And here's the key. Lady Morning was the time he chose to remind himself of this. Why? Because the morning is when your mind is freshest before the world hijacks it. Marcus often wrote in meditations to prepare himself, repeating, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that for a moment. How much of your daily stress comes from obsessing over things you can't change? The weather, other people's moods, random delays, even the opinions of strangers online. What if you could train yourself to stop wasting energy on what doesn't belong to you and instead pour all that energy into what you can control? Here's the hook. What would happen if you took just 2 minutes every morning to drop every single worry you can't control? Now let's make this practical. Marcus Aurelius had a habit of journaling. He wrote down reminders not for anyone else, but for himself. It wasn't about pretty words or poetry. It was a tool to sharpen his mindset. He would literally write, "Today, you will face difficulty. But you can control your thoughts, your actions, your choices." This practice is timeless. Today, psychologists call it cognitive reframing. By writing or even speaking out loud what you can control versus what you can't, you shift your brain's focus. Suddenly, instead of drowning in anxiety, you're anchored in clarity. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a big presentation today. You can't control if your boss is in a bad mood. You can't control if the projector malfunctions. But you can control how prepared you are. You can control your breathing, your delivery, your mindset. By separating the uncontrollable from the controllable, you take back your power. Marcus Aurelius started every day this way, not by predicting outcomes, but by fortifying his response. He understood external chaos. It doesn't define you. Your reaction does. Now imagine your own morning tomorrow. You wake up, grab a notebook, and draw 2 columns. On the left, things I can't control. On the right, things I can control. Spend 2 minutes filling it in. On the left, you might write the weather, other people's opinions, stock market, traffic. On the right, you might write my attitude, my effort, how I treat others, my words. Close the notebook. Let the left side go. Carry only the right side with you. That's Stoic clarity. Here's the real secret. When you stop fighting battles you can't win, you have more strength for the ones you can. That's why Marcus Aurelius was able to lead Rome through crisis after crisis without collapsing under the weight of worry. He chose where to place his energy. And that's the question I want to leave you with. How much of your energy today will you waste on things you can't change? And how much stronger could you be if you spent that same energy mastering what you can? So tomorrow morning, give yourself those 2 minutes. Write it down, say it out loud, or even just think it clearly. This is mine to control. This is not. It may be the simplest habit you ever practice, but it could be the one that transforms your entire day. Because in the end, life is not about controlling everything. It's about controlling yourself, and that's where true freedom begins. When you wake up in the morning, what's the very first thought that crosses your mind? For most of us, it's something like, I'm tired. I don't want to go to work. I just need more sleep. Our mornings begin with complaints, distractions, or survival mode. But Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, started his mornings differently. Every day before stepping into the chaos of ruling an empire, he reminded himself of something bigger, something beyond comfort, beyond power, even beyond himself. He connected with what the Stoics called logos, and the universal reason, the guiding principle of life itself. For Marcus, mornings weren't just about getting out of bed. They were about aligning with meaning. He didn't rise just to survive another day. He rose to live in harmony with his purpose. He believed that to wake up and not live with intention was to waste the gift of existence. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, if today were your last day on earth, how would you begin it? Would you start by scrolling through your phone, complaining about traffic? Or would you begin with gratitude, clarity, and a sense of mission? Here's the hook. If you live as though today is your last, you will never waste a morning again. Marcus often wrote about this. He reminded himself that life is short, unpredictable, and fragile. Every day was a gift, not a guarantee. And because of that, he believed mornings were sacred. They were the time to realign with what truly mattered, to live justly, to serve others, to embody wisdom. Let's bring this down to our world. We're surrounded by endless distractions, emails, notifications, deadlines. It's easy to forget why we're even doing all of this in the first place. But here's the truth without purpose. Your mornings feel heavy. With purpose, even the hardest mornings feel lighter. Think about the difference between two people waking up. One wakes up thinking, another boring day of tasks I hate. The other wakes up thinking, I have an opportunity today to live with meaning, to show kindness, to create something worthwhile. Who do you think walks out the door stronger? Marcus Aurelius wasn't naive. He knew not every day would be glorious. He knew he would face hardship, betrayal, and even death. But he also knew this, as long as he connected his actions to a greater meaning, nothing could rob him of his inner strength. Modern psychology agrees. Studies show that people with a strong sense of purpose are more resilient to stress, recover faster from setbacks, and even live longer. Purpose doesn't just give you motivation, it literally strengthens your body and mind against life's challenges. So how can you practice this tomorrow morning? You don't need to be a philosopher or emperor. You just need 2 minutes of reflection. Before you get out of bed, ask yourself, why am I alive today? What is one meaningful thing I can do? Maybe it's helping a colleague, calling a loved one, creating something valuable, or simply practicing patience in a difficult situation. The point is not to have a perfect answer, it's to wake up with intention. Because when you start with meaning, you walk differently, speak differently, and even face problems differently. Here's another way to frame it. Imagine you're holding a compass. Without it, you wander aimlessly. With it, every step, even the small ones, points toward your true north. For Marcus, Logos was that compass. For you, it could be your values, your faith, your family, or your personal mission. But you need something to point to, or else you'll wake up every morning lost. So tomorrow, don't just rise because the alarm clock told you to. Rise because you have a reason. Remind yourself, I may not control how long I live, but I control how meaningful today will be. And here's my challenge for you. Write down one sentence each morning that captures your purpose for that day. Keep it short. Keep it clear. Something like, today I live with patience. Or today I bring kindness. Or today I focus on growth. It may sound small, but it could change everything. Because life doesn't suddenly become meaningful at the end. It becomes meaningful in the small choices you make every day. So I'll leave you with this question. If you lived today as though it were your last, how would you begin it? So let's bring it all together. Marcus Aurelius didn't start his mornings with luxury, distraction, or comfort. He started with discipline, clarity, and purpose. And from his writings, we can see 5 powerful habits that shaped his day and can reshape yours. First, he woke with a Stoic mindset, reminding himself that being alive is a privilege, not a burden. Second, he accepted hardship before it arrived, preparing his mind for the selfish, arrogant, or ungrateful people he would inevitably meet. Third, he embraced discipline and simplicity, refusing to let comfort dictate his actions. Getting out of bed wasn't a choice, it was a responsibility. Fourth, he focused only on what was within his control, letting go of the endless distractions and worries that didn't belong to him. And finally, he began every morning with purpose and meaning, aligning himself with the greater flow of life and asking, how can I live with intention today? Now here's my challenge to you, and it starts tomorrow morning. Before you reach for your phone, before you let the world flood your mind, write down just one Stoic reminder for yourself. It could be as simple as, I rise to do the work of a human being, or I control my attitude, not the world around me. Start with just one sentence. That single act could set the tone for your entire day. And when you've tried it, come back here and share your experience in the comments. Did it change the way you felt in the morning? Did it shift how you faced challenges during the day? Your story might inspire someone else to do the same. If you found this video helpful and you want to learn more timeless lessons from Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism lessons that can help you live stronger, calmer, and more focused, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because in the next video, we're diving even deeper into Stoic wisdom, uncovering practical strategies that can transform not just your mornings, but your entire life. So tomorrow morning, don't just wake up. Wake up like a Stoic. And watch how your life begins to change.